Hey, so if you're in Nigeria, you've probably taken a look at your bank account lately and thought, wait a minute, what's going on here? There's been so much talk and honestly a lot of confusion about a whole new set of tax laws. So let's just cut through all the noise and figure out what this really means for you and your money. It probably all started when you noticed those new, kind of mysterious charges popping up on your bank transfers. And no, you're not imagining things. There's a real story behind them, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack right now. All right, first things first, let's tackle the part that's hitting your wallet directly. We're going to break down exactly what these new charges are, and more importantly, why they're suddenly showing up. Okay, the first new charge you need to get your head around is this one, a flat 50 naira fee. This is the new stamp duty, and it's a really key part of all these changes.
So here's the deal with the stamp duty. It's a simple, flat 50 naira charge, but it only applies to electronic transfers of 10,000 naira or more. Now, the big change here is who pays it. It used to be the person receiving the money, but now the sender pays the fee directly. And just so you know, things like salary payments and transfers between your own accounts, yeah, those are exempt.
And now, for the one that has caused an absolute storm online, this 7.5%. This is the new value-added tax, or VAT. But, and this is super important, it's probably not what you think it is. And listen, this is probably the single biggest thing to clear up. That 7.5% VAT is not a tax on the money you're transferring. Let me say that again. It is not on your principal amount. It only applies to the tiny service fees that the bank charges you for making the transfer happen. To cut through all the crazy rumors, the Nigeria Revenue Service actually put out a really clear example. Let's just look at the math. Say you send 10,000 naira, and your bank charges you a 25 naira service fee. Well, that 7.5% VAT is only on the 25 naira fee. It comes out to just 1 naira and 88 kobo. Your original 10,000 naira, completely untouched. Okay, so now that we've hopefully cleared up the confusion around those personal bank charges, let's zoom out. Because these little fees, they're actually part of a much, much bigger story. So why is all this happening right now? Well, according to the president, these new charges are just one piece of a huge plan. The goal here, he says, isn't just to raise taxes. It's about a complete reset of Nigeria's entire financial system, trying to make it fairer and more competitive for the future. You know, the official goals for this whole reform are pretty ambitious. They're talking about everything from making the tax system simpler and boosting economic growth to cracking down on tax evasion and making sure everything is fair. This is the government's big vision for this massive overhaul. But, and this is a huge but, this ambitious plan has run into a very serious problem. We're talking about a major political and legal controversy over the law itself. At the heart of it all is this pretty explosive allegation that the version of the law that's been officially published and is being enforced is, well, different from the version that was actually debated and passed by the lawmakers in the National Assembly. And look, the differences people are pointing to are really serious. For instance, the bill that lawmakers passed apparently allowed taxes to be calculated in any currency, but the published version says it has to be US dollars. The original bill let you appeal a tax dispute directly. The published one says you have to pay 20% of the disputed amount first. And maybe the scariest one, where the legislature required a court order to seize assets, the published law seems to let it happen without one. This quote from Professor Yadudu, who was a former top legal advisor, really captures how serious this is. He calls it a usurping of legislative functions. Basically, he's arguing that the executive branch has just steamrolled the will of the legislature. That's a very, very serious constitutional charge. But like with any big debate, there is another side to this story. So let's look at the counter-argument, which really frames this as a question of, is this a full-blown crisis or just a simple clerical error? So legal experts on the other side of the fence are arguing that, no, this is not a constitutional crisis at all. Instead, they say the whole controversy is based on a big misunderstanding of how laws in Nigeria are actually made, signed, and then published for everyone to see. The key point in their argument comes down to the role of the official gazette. They say a bill becomes law the second the president signs the version passed by the National Assembly. Publishing it later in the Gazette, that's just a public notice. It's evidence of the law, but it's not the law itself. So if there are mistakes in the Gazette, they're just that, clerical mistakes, not some secret rewriting of the actual law. And this quote from senior advocate of Nigeria, Sam Cargo, just sums up that whole rebuttal perfectly. The argument is that the system already has ways to fix printing mistakes or clerical errors. You don't have to throw out the entire reform process because of what they're calling clerical imperfection. So, you might think that's the end of it. But even if we put aside all the high-stakes political drama about which version of the law is the real one, there's actually another whole layer to this problem. It turns out the tax code itself might be deeply flawed. You see, when experts, including analysts at the global firm KPMG, did a deep dive, they found that it doesn't matter which version you look at. The text of the new law is apparently filled with errors, gaps, and parts that are just legally confusing or even contradictory. I mean, just for example, the law calculates tax on profits from selling assets without even adjusting for inflation, which could lead to huge unfair tax bills. A really important tax break for exporters seems to have just vanished. And get this, the law says every single person has to file a tax return now, but it completely forgot to mention when the deadline is. These are just a few of the technical landmines that still need to be sorted out. So where does all of this leave us? Is this massive tax overhaul the necessary, bold reset that Nigeria's economy needs? Or, with all the controversy, the confusion, and these deep technical flaws, does it risk becoming a chaotic misstep? That's the billion-hour question, isn't it?